Now that our work order has been created, the next step would be for the vendor to accept it on their end, or we can accept it on their behalf. In order to do that, we're going to scroll to the bottom and click on the accept button that we see here. If the vendor chooses to do so, though, it can also be rejected on their end. But we will go ahead and click on accept. And when we click on that button, we have the ability to select the ETA, the estimated time of arrival, for the vendor to be on site. And we also have to remember to agree to the terms and conditions every time we accept a work order on their behalf or they accept it themselves. We can also enter notes, meaning that we can say, for example, spoke with vendor. It will be here shortly. And then we would click on the finish button. Oh, I apologize. I went into the wrong work order. So now the status of the work order is accepted. The vendor would arrive on site and we would check them in by clicking on the vendor check-in button. We can say check on site. Every time we enter notes as we process the work order from one state to the next, from one status to the next, those notes are actually being populated in the service history portion of the work order. And as you can see, that note I just entered is actually visible to us again here. And it will document who the user was that created that note. Right now we are logged in as one of the store managers, and it's documented that as that store manager clicked to move the work order to the next status, that note was entered. You can also check or uncheck the option to display email history, and that will either display or hide a list of the emails sent out as the work order was moved from one status to the next. Okay? And we can see who was copied on the emails that went out. Something else to notice is that the status of our work order is now updated to vendor on site. And now that the vendor is on site, the total number of hours that vendor is on site is going to be recorded between the time that we check them in to the time that we check them out. So we're going to go ahead and simulate that the vendor has completed the work. They have replaced the ballast that we needed to have work done on, and they're done. So we're going to say work done. And now the number of hours on site has changed because it's being calculated between the time that we press the vendor check-in button to the time that we check them out. So it's documenting that about 2 minutes passed between those two actions. And now that we have checked the vendor out and indicated that the work is completed, we have this new button available to us to sign off on the work order. When we sign off on a work order, we are indicating that we are satisfied with the work that was performed, and that we are ready for the vendor to invoice us. Before I do that, I want to point out again that any documents that we attach to a work order are always visible. So that PDF that I had attached when I created the work order in the previous video is now visible to us by clicking on this Documents link that we see here. And if we were to double click on that, the PDF would come up and we will be able to see it. It's the same thing for pictures or Word documents or Excel spreadsheets. You can attach any number of different types of files, and you can always just click on that link and be able to view the attached documents. So we will now click on Work Order Sign Off. And that will take us to a survey that will let us give feedback on how happy we are with the work that was performed for us. So there's a series of questions that you would need to go over, and you would be able to indicate how satisfied you are with each of those areas. So we're going to say that the technician was very professional, they checked in upon arrival, so on and so forth. And we can also enter actual notes. So if we want to say the technician was very helpful, or we want to document something specific, we can do so by entering a note. So we are now done entering the answers to our sign-off survey, and we're going to click on the Finish button. And the work order has now been moved to the sign-off status. So it's been signed off on. And if we scroll to the bottom, we now see that there's a Create Invoice button available to us now. This button is also available to the vendor. So in the next video, we're going to be logging in as a vendor and submitting an invoice for the work order that we have just completed.